One of Yu-Gi-Oh's main selling points as a modern TCG is its incredibly wide pool of over 10,000 legal cards, allowing players to find incidental interactions between cards that make them more generically playable than they may initially seem. In this list, we'll be covering some of the best cards in the game that have found themselves more at home filling niches outside of their intended archetype, and explain what led them to such roles. And at number 10, we have Artifact Lancea, a level 5 fairy monster which can be set to your spell trap card zone as a spell, despite being a monster. Then, if it's destroyed on your opponent's turn, you can special summon it to your field. It can also be tributed from your hand or face-up field to prevent either player from banishing cards for the rest of the turn. Artifacts' entire gimmick is that their monsters can be set into the back row and then special summon themselves when destroyed during your opponent's turn. This is intended to put your opponent into a risky situation, as they have to then guess whether or not they need to fear a real spell or trap card, or if attempting to remove it will actually make their situation worse. As an artifact card, Artifact Lancea is actually a massive failure. Most artifacts have an additional effect when they're destroyed, such as locking your opponent out of their extra deck or special summoning entirely, while Artifact Lancea does just about nothing. However, since you can activate and tribute Lancea from your hand, there's simply no reason to ever set it. At best, you manage to bait an opponent's back row removal, but at worst, you lose out on a key moment where you could activate Lancea's effect, and it remains stuck face down for the rest of the game. That being said, what makes Lancea fail as an artifact is exactly what allows it to succeed as a hand trap. Artifact Lancea functions as an effective and direct counter to decks and strategies that love to banish cards, such as Orcus and Runic. Plus, Lancea is a lingering floodgate like Drone Lockbird. Once its effect is resolved, there's nothing your opponent can do except pass turn, and hope that setting a few cards is good enough for them to survive. And at number 9, we have Herald of the Orange Light, a level 2 fairy tuner belonging to the Heralds, which are a group of fairies all about negating and destroying your opponent's cards. Following suit, you can send Herald of the Orange Light and any other fairy monster from your hand to the graveyard when your opponent activates a monster effect to negate the activation of that effect, and if you do, also destroy that monster. Negating and destroying a monster as a hand trap is ludicrously powerful, and is the reason both itself and Ciphering Gear Gamma have been and are currently on the limited lists, respectively. However, requiring a second fairy to discard is incredibly expensive in terms of card economy, and severely limits the deck that can use it. All 3 Herald hand traps are strong, but require the right deck and meta in order to see play. Herald of the Orange Light is currently seen play in Melodious, and has also seen play in Drytron alongside Cyber Angel Benton and Diviner of the Herald. Ironically, Herald of the Orange Light most notably saw play in a primarily non-fairy deck, Tier Limits. The ability to discard the Ishizu fairies on your opponent's turn actually turned the disadvantage of Orange Light's discard into both an advantage generating combo starter and an anti-Tier Limits ballistic missile. Incidentally, Herald was also a level 2 tuner that could be summoned from the graveyard using Sprite Elf to make Baronne de Fleur in a pinch, though Tyr vastly preferred to do this using Diviner of the Herald. Tyr's abuse of Orange Light resulted in it being limited until the Ishizu fairies and Tier Limits began being restricted themselves. Herald of the Orange Light has seen the most play in the TCG, where monster combo decks have almost always been dominant. But as a testament to general power of the Herald hand traps, Herald of Green Light deserves an honorable mention for its current meta play in Duel Links, negating spells and tuning in the Sky Hyperion decks such as Ultimate Fusion and opponents' copies of the Sacred Waters of the Sky. These Herald cards are all incredibly powerful, and are bound to see competitive use wherever and whenever fairies are meta. And swimming into number 8 is Gameciel, the Sea Turtle Kaiju, a level 8 water aqua monster that can be special summoned to your opponent's field in attack position by tributing a monster they control. It also has a lesser known effect that allows you to, without any kind of once per turn, remove 2 Kaiju counters from anywhere on the field to negate the activation of opponent's card or effect and banish that card. Trading 1 for 1 with a card in your hand for a monster in your opponent's field is incredibly disadvantageous, especially when your opponent is the one who actually receives the monster. So why would you ever want to play Gameciel when cards such as Harpy's Feather Duster, Lightning Storm, and even Evenly Matched exist? While these blanket removal cards are usually effective at dealing with wide, decentralized boards, sometimes there are cases where a single monster becomes so centralizing and difficult out that this disadvantageous trade actually breaks even and becomes worth it. Gameciel isn't used for its quantity of its removal, but for the quality of its monster removal. Removal by tribute is the strongest type of monster removal in the game due to being cost-based, and therefore completely unrespondable, while also bypassing the protections of many incredibly hard to deal with monsters. While technically all kaijus fill this role, Gameciel is mostly commonly used because it's the kaiju with the lowest attack value at 2200, making it the easiest to hand to your opponent and then subsequently beat over. That being said, even though it's almost always irrelevant since it requires kaiju counters in order to activate, Gameciel's second effect is also secretly one of the most potent omni-negates in the game, both negating activations and banishing cards without any kind of once per turn restriction. If you ever see your opponent activate a copy of Kyoto Waterfront and summon a Saryuja Skuldred, there's a good chance they'll actually intend to summon Gameciel to their own field to use its hyper-repeatable Omni-Negate, effectively ending the game instantly. And riffing on a 7 at number 7 is Ostinato, a normal spell that, if you control no monsters, allows you to fusion summon a Melodious fusion monster using 2 monsters from your hand or deck as fusion materials. That monster is then destroyed during the end phase, and if all of its materials are still in the graveyard, you can special summon all of them to your field. The only restriction on Ostinato is that you cannot control any cards when you activate it. And that's it. There's no summoning lock, and it's not even a once per turn. It's effectively a generic version of Branded Fusion. And with the new support introduced in Legacy of Destruction, this old card finally has a lot to offer. Its downsides are completely irrelevant, as no matter what, it either demands an immediate answer by your opponent, or the lingering end phase monster destruction won't have a target because the monster you'll be summoning with Ostinato, Baka the Melodious Monstra, is almost always going to be linked away as part of your combo. While Ostinato has proven to be a great tool in pure Melodious decks, it has also seen use alongside a minimalist Melodious engine in a variety of decks for its ability to make rank 4s and link 4s without committing to a normal summon or applying any kind of restrictions. This card and the small package it represents have primarily seen the most success in various light and pendulum decks, but have also made a splash in decks like Snake Eyes for its ability to make Infernal Flame Banshee to search Snake Eyes popular and begin performing Snake Eyes combos under the protection of Appaloosa Bow the Goddess. That being said, if you're considering the Melodious cards, you should also try to find a way to your main combo by normal summoning Refrain in order to maximize the starters the engine provides. If you rely too heavily on Ostinato, you're always at risk of ending on an empty board should you be interrupted by a single hand trap. And restarting the cycle at number 6 is Time Thief Redoer, a rank 4 Psychic Xyz monster which requires 2 level 4 monsters as materials in order to summon, and can attach the top card of your opponent's deck to itself as material during the standby phase. Then, as a quick effect, Redoer can detach up to 3 different materials to apply various effects, depending on the kinds of cards that were detached. If it's a monster, Redoer banishes itself until the end phase. If it's a spell, then you get to draw a card. And if it's a trap, you get to spin one of your opponent's cards to the top of their deck. Throughout the years, Time Thief Redoer has found itself in a uniquely wide array of decks, for a uniquely numerous variety of reasons. But in spite of Time Thief Redoer's general popularity, many people aren't aware that Time Thieves are actually their own archetype of generic rank 4 enablers, which attach monsters from various places to give them Xyz materials and various effects. That being said, most players simply know Redoer as a generic 2 material rank 4 for either its utility as both an engine piece or power as a boss monster. One of the most egregious archetypes when it comes to abusing generic cards, Tearlaments uses Redoer as a way to send monsters from the field to the graveyard for effect, since it detaches monster for effect instead of cost. This allows them to trigger the effects of Shirens to fuse and Rhino Hearts to special summon, either while maneuvering through their combos on their turn, or as a quick effect on your opponent's turn. Redoer also finds a home as an honorary Spriggans monster, mimicking the archetypal Spriggans Xyz self-banishing effects, and providing them with another way to trigger the pop effect of gigantic Scriptbreaker Sargus on your opponent's turn. On the other end of the spectrum, decks like Phantom Knights and Trap Tricks have an in-archetype level 4 trap monster that can be special summoned on the same turn that they're set. These decks use Redoer as a board breaker and boss monster by making it with using the archetypal trap monsters, enabling Redoer's effect to spin an opponent's card to the top of their deck with ease. Then, as an added bonus to any deck that runs Redoer, it can sometimes randomly net you a free draw if you manage to pick off a spell off of your opponent's deck during either player's standby phase. Overall, Time Thief Redoer is an incredible utility card that fills multiple niches throughout a myriad of decks.
Oh no, I seem to be lost in these woods. I hope no one tries to sell me product.
Hello there, are you in the woods looking for card sleeves to keep your cards safe?
Oh thank goodness. Can you tell me how to get back to the main road?
No can do, but I can tell you about these amazing Blood Moon packs with matching Field Center.
I just want to get home.
You're worried about the price, huh? Well, good thing we have bundles. If you get the Blood Moon bundles, you can get the card, Field Center, playmat, and even a leather box.
I was out here to bury a body.
Well, you just have to go to the TheDuelLogs store to find out. Visit TheDuelLogs.com or click one of the links under the video in order to check out an assortment of card sleeves and playmats. And comboing itself off into number 5 is Destiny Hero Malicious, a level 6 Dark Warrior monster with the simple effect to banish itself from your graveyard in order to special summon another copy of Malicious from your deck. For such a simple effect, Malicious is deceptively powerful. On top of level 6 being incredibly versatile for various XCs and synchro plays, Malicious's recurability of special summoning more copies of itself as a graveyard effect is unmatched by nearly any other card in the game. Cards that combo with themselves are extremely dangerous in a post-link environment, and often enable streamlined combos of ban-worthy efficiency. Ever since 2007, soon after its release, the semi-limited list existed primarily as holding faculty for exactly Destiny Hero Malicious, allowing it to still function without being an overbearing force. However, with the advent of the April 15th, 2024 ban list, Malicious has been released once again to 3 copies, a change that has been attempted in the past, but has never managed to stick around. Destiny Hero Denier was printed almost explicitly to give hero decks access to a third Malicious, without actually giving them the third Malicious out of fear of what generic toolbox decks might do with the card. That being said, even with the existence of Destiny Hero Dangerous, an in-archetype fusion which can send Malicious from the deck to the graveyard, it has yet to make much of a splash in any deck not named exactly Tearlaments. At this point, only time will tell whether Malicious is biding his time for the right deck to come along and break him, or if he has finally been power corrupted enough and can safely remain unlimited for the foreseeable future. And engaging the enemy at number 4 is Sky Striker Mobilize Engage. This is a normal spell that if you have no monsters in your main monster zone, allows you to add any Sky Striker card from your deck to your hand, and then draw a card if you have 3 or more spells in your graveyard. While Engage might seem too heavily restricted to use generically at first glance, decks that can keep their board relatively clean or centralize their power into the extra monster zone are sometimes able to effectively utilize a small Sky Striker engine to reap the benefits that just Engage provides. The most important card that Engage can search in generic splashes is Sky Striker Mecha Hornet Drones, which can summon a Sky Striker Ace token to your field for free. This allows you to summon Sky Striker Ace Kagari to recover Engage from the graveyard and then use it again. All interactive Sky Striker spells, including Sky Striker Mobilize Engage, do not have any kind of once per turn restriction. They also become much more powerful once you have 3 spell cards in your grave, encouraging their use in decks likely to naturally fulfill that condition. Once you've looped Engage and ideally set up your graveyard to net a free draw, you have a small collection of high quality cards to choose from for your second search. Sky Striker Mecha Widowmaker functions as a quick play spell version of Infinite Impermanence, which upgrades into a Change of Heart. Sky Striker Mecha Shark Cannon is a quick play DD Crow, which can instead function as a Monster Reborn. And Sky Striker Maneuver Afterburners allows you to destroy a face-up monster and upgrades to also destroy a spell or trap card. And if this utility wasn't enough, Engage is even searchable by the generic link to Sky Striker Ace Camellia, which can dump it to the graveyard to be retrieved to Kagari for a single use. The downside to playing Engage generically is that the 3 spell requirement for the Sky Striker spell's bonus effects typically forces you to fully commit to a board-breaking playstyle. This in turn forces you to completely rethink typical deck building conventions, like stick to 40 cards, since without hand traps, it may be worth going over 40 to play spell cards like Upstart Goblin and Pot of Desires. There also may be situations where you're holding an incredibly powerful Sky Striker card in your hand, but can't activate it because your main monster zone has a monster stuck in it that you can't get rid of, requiring you to run extra deck engine requirements like Haggard Lizardos. These conundrums must be weighed against the potential payoff, and is what makes Sky Striker Mobilize Engage such a difficult but incredibly lucrative card to build around. And strong arming its way into number 3 is Dinowrestler Pankratops, a level 7 dinosaur monster with 2600 attack and 0 defense, which can special summon itself to your field if your opponent controls more monsters than you do. And as a hard once per turn quick effect, Pankratops allows you to tribute a Dinowrestler monster in order to target one card your opponent controls and destroy it. While Pankratops might seem rather underwhelming at first glance, it's cut from much sturdier cardboard than most cards, and is nothing like the rest of its link climbing brethren. Pankratops' effect to pop a card has a few notable attributes that set it apart from most other effects like it. Unlike most monsters that tribute for costs, Pank allows you to tribute itself as a quick effect. The ability to remove itself from the field at spell speed 2 allows Pankratops to get away with dodging all too common targeted effect negation and the incredibly oppressive Floodgate skill drain, providing a clean way of outing numerous hard to deal with situations. Another important factor that contributes to Pankratops' splashability and viability is its notably high attack for a Cyber Dragon-like special summon. While attack points are usually irrelevant until you're trying to close out a game, Once you break the threshold of around 24 to 2500 attack points, they actually do start to matter. This is because attack point values of this size enable you to start crashing with or even beat over certain problematic boss monsters, effectively allowing you to use the battle phase as a makeshift removal spell. Combining all of these factors into a single card results in Pankratops' status as an easy-to-use, non-committal 2-for-1 trade which can clear the field of hard-to-deal-with cards before committing to your mainline plays. And flying into number 2 is Bystial Druiswurm, a level 6 Dark Dragon with 2500 attack and 2000 defense, which can target any light or dark monster in either graveyard to banish it to special summon itself from your hand. Then, if Druiswurm is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can target a special summon monster opponent controls and send it to the graveyard. Just like all of the level 6 Bystials, Druiswurm functions as an extremely potent hand trap against most Chaos-type decks. Bystials are sometimes referred to as DD Crows on legs, due to their comparatively similar graveyard banishing effects, and the massive 2500 bodies that are attached to them. However, unlike Crow, Bystials come with the downside that your opponent must control the monster for their effect to actually be a quick effect. Just like Dinowrestler Pankratops, Bystials commonly go at least 2-for-1 through the course of a game. What sets Druiswurms apart from the rest of the Bystials is its effect to send a special summon monster from the field to the graveyard if it's sent to the graveyard, as it allows it to punch far above its weight class against other common threats in the metagame, while dodging destruction protection. Whether it does so by abusing its status as a quick effect, or using its self-destructive attack to leverage the damage step of the battle phase, Druiswurm is an incredible all-rounder at both preventing and breaking boards. On the completely other side of the spectrum, Bystial Druiswurm's inherent quality as Dark level 6 lends it just well to combo setups as the aforementioned Destiny hero Malicious, if not even slightly better. While some people might argue that Bystial Magma Hut is better of the two Bystials that are typically splashed into decks, Druiswurm is almost always played alongside Bystial Magma Hut as its primary search target. However, it's arguable that in most cases, Magma Hut's inclusion actually functions as a way to maximize the value of resolving Druiswurm, as its board presence is easily the more threatening and problematic of the two. The only risk that prevents Druiswurm and the other Bystials from seeing constant play in chaos-themed metas is the existence of triple tactics thrusts. Since all of the Bystials special summon themselves when using their hand trap effects, an opponent playing triple tactics thrusts will be allowed to add any spell from the deck to their hand in retaliation, which could be devastating to a catastrophic degree. That being said, the next card also currently helps keep all of the Bystials in check. And sprinting like a maniac into number 1 is Kashtira Fenrir, a level 7 earth monster with 2400 attack and defense, which can be special summoned from your hand if you control no monsters, and can search a Kashtira monster from your deck once per turn. It can also target a face-up card your opponent controls and banish it face down when Fenrir either declares an attack or your opponent activates a monster effect. Kashtira Fenrir is the strongest non-committal card in the game due to the enormous utility it provides at a lethal efficiency. While cards that require your opponent to play into them typically aren't that good, Kashtira Fenrir's trigger conditions are so far-reaching that most decks can't help but play into it. Fenrir applies pressure on the board from the moment it's summoned, acting as a pseudo-floodgate against monster effects at risk of your opponent having one of their cards banished face down. This makes it good when going first and even better when going second, as it permanently answers a wide variety of powerful cards, including floodgates. And that's all before mentioning Fenrir's search effect. In addition to searching for any other monster in the Kashtira archetype, Kashtira Fenrir can also do something that most searchers can't do: add an additional copy of itself. The risk of Fenrir searching for a second Fenrir can often encourage an immediate response from your opponent at risk of having to deal with a second copy of it later in the game, and progresses your board while refilling your hand with follow-up or free discards for later use. Kashtira Fenrir can be played in nearly any deck, and sees so much meta play that Earth-focused decks often opt to play Asua the Earth Charmer Immovable simply as a way to steal Fenrirs out of their opponent's graveyards. It's a contender for the best card currently in the game, and if the OCG Master Duel are anything to go by, it may also find its way to the TCG's Forbidden or Limited list in due time. Alright, and that's the list. Are there any other powerful generic staples you may have missed, or do you have any ideas for future videos just like this one? If so, let us know down in the comments below.